When you go to a different team, straight away you've got 30 odd blokes. You've got to be on your mettle. You've got to perform and almost prove yourself again. And that's a reinvigoration in many ways. Going to that new club, you've got to prove yourself again. I've found that really beneficial over the years. You can almost feel it, sense it that we're going to win the game, but we left the door slightly ajar. It's just disappointing for us that we weren't able to shut that one out, because we just needed like a big result to really give us more belief. The way he ran off the field, it was like, why is he doing that? Like, anytime you come close in the sporting world, if it doesn't go to plan, there's a bit of an uproar, and certainly the referee was getting pelters. That was for sure off the back of that.
Welcome back to Shinjuku, guys. We are lucky to have Scottish royalty here with us today, with Greig Laidlaw. Greg, how you going?
Very well, thanks. Good to be here in a pretty cool spot in Japan.
Awesome, and we like to start the show every time by sort of learning a little bit about how you've met Matt in the past and met Will in the past. So I don't know, Gits, what's sort of your backstory with Greg here?
Well, we were talking about it before. I think the only time that we actually crossed paths, like played each other, was the 2015 World Cup, the quarterfinal. And then the first time that we actually met and got a chance to chat was just only a few weeks ago in Hong Kong at the Doriwe dinner. But we didn't really get too many opportunities to have a drink, so we'll save that for another time. But yeah, that's it. Only just the one time we managed to play each other.
Yeah, and Will, what about you?
Yeah, first time we crossed paths was in Newcastle, 2012. For some reason, they decided to play a test match in like cyclone weather where the rain was sideways. And I remember at the time, I think we were standing there preparing for a scrum, and we're all there shaking and shivering, and all the Scottish boys are just standing there as if it's just normal. And it was probably at that point I realised we're not winning this game. But yeah, that was the first time I'd met him, and we sort of crossed paths playing each other over the years. And it's actually nice to finally sit there and have a chat and have a conversation.
Awesome. And well, let's start in that sort of 2012 period, because Greg, you'd been with the Scottish team for a little bit before that, but that was when you sort of really, I guess, cemented yourself as a full-time member?
Yeah, pretty much. I guess I started coming through into the team in around that 2012 mark, and I was playing 10 mostly at that point, because Mike Blair, Chris Cussett still had some very good nines playing then as well. And that game in Newcastle was... it was ridiculous, to be honest, because I remember it was like dry all day. We'd had a wander on the beach, and we literally stepped out to get on the team bus, and it started like hosing down. And believe it or not, we actually don't really like playing in the rain much. Coming from Scotland, mate, because we have to do it so many times. We like playing in the dry as well, but it was a ridiculous night to play rugby. And the best part of it was, we were talking about it before, and I think Al Strokosh and Joe Ansbro, when they banged heads at the end of the game. It's still a good watch on YouTube when they jump up and celebrate. And Joe split his eye open on about 20 odd stitches.
Jeez, and I mean, what was that tour like for you guys? Because as you say, you're coming out of Scotland, you're sort of thinking you're going to have a bit of tropical weather, maybe in Australia and the islands, and then you get weather like that. A bit tough. Yeah,
it was pretty tough. Obviously, the game was tough, but we had great fun. It was an incredible trip. I was saying to the boys before, we were meant to play, I think it was the Waratahs, and it got cancelled. They had so many injuries, so we basically managed to beat Aussie. Went back down to Manly, staying on that hotel there down the front, and we were there for about 6 days before we flew over to Fiji and stuff. I remember flying, we got to the airport in Sydney. It must have been, there's a couple of boys like green before we flew. We'd had a few drinks and stuff, and enjoyed the win, and then we headed over to Fiji and Samoa. So yeah, it was a heck of a trip.
Yeah, you played 10 that test match, from what I can remember.
Yeah.
So I always knew you to, or thought of you to be a 10, and then eventually you obviously moved into halfback, and I thought he was a 10. Were you always a 9, and you just played 10 because you had good halfbacks around that time, or?
Yeah, pretty much. So what happened was, Mike was at Edinburgh, Mike Blair as well.
Yep.
Myself, Phil Godman was there as well, and then I think we must have picked up a few injuries or something, and I ended up, playing 10 and went on a pretty good run. That was the year Edinburgh went to the semi-final of Europe. We ended up playing Ulster in the Aviva, and sadly they beat us. But yeah, so basically it kind of started out at 9 with a couple of injuries, and I started playing there, and I think I ended up playing about 10 tests for Scotland in that 10 jersey. So that was great fun. Certainly when I was a bit younger, it was obviously a great learning experience. For me, certainly further down the track.
Yeah, for sure.
Gets, you can talk to us a little bit as well, but obviously it's good to be able to focus on one position, but when you're able to play 9 and 10 or 9, 10 and 12, I guess it helps you understand what those other players on your team are looking for from you.
Can we just get a bit of a backstory about how good you are as a halfback based on Mike Phillips' opinion? He's been telling everybody.
We don't need to
every
mention
time.
this every podcast, but
Did you play halfback one
yeah,
time?
so I did a end of season tour,
Here we
spring tour, and then we had a 3-test series in Australia against Wales. And Mike Phillips said that I'm the best halfback he's ever played against at the test level. So really, it eats away at him. But I didn't make it up. Well, I think to answer your point, like the good thing about playing different positions, obviously you want to be cemented in one so that you can really hone your craft and know exactly or be as best as you can at that one position. But moving around, so when I played at 9, I understood how a 10 can help me so much more, and what I look for and what can help a 9 play his natural game. So from that angle, it's good to do that. I mean, I'm sure once you went to 10, you kind of learnt what a good 9 or how a 9 could help you. And then when you moved into 9, you'd obviously want to do that to help your 10. So I think when you move different positions, that's where it can be advantageous for you.
Yeah. Is it similar experience?
Yeah, definitely, and I think it's a great learning curve. That was the one thing I guess I took out of the whole thing, and yeah, as Gits was sort of explaining, it's what does a 10 actually feel when the pressure's on, and how can you help them from that 9's perspective, and vice versa. So yeah, there's a lot to be learned, and I think certainly for young players coming through, shouldn't be scared to play a couple of positions, and obviously you don't want to get stuck in that middle ground where you become that sort of utility player, because sometimes that can hamper great players' careers, sadly. But definitely when you're a bit younger, do a bit of sort of experimenting, play a couple of different positions, and as long as you're playing rugby when you're a youngster, that's the most important thing. And yeah, I think there's been a few things come out recently, certainly back home in English Premiership, about that players just under that top level, they're struggling to get games of rugby, and that's the most important thing is you play, certainly when you're trying to break through, because you need game time.
Well, my one, I played 9 all through school. And then it was just Eddie Jones picked me out of like a 7s setup and moved me to 12. And this was when all the 12s were massive. And I'm going, this guy's mad. But it ended up being my position that I moved to. So, I think, like you say, at a young age, you just go wherever you can, because you may even find your position might be a different one. But it also just gives you that experience. You get to play some rugby.
Yeah, I played 10 in school. So I played first 15 my first year as a 10. And the idea of you see the game differently as well, and it hones your skills in different ways. Like I like to think of myself as like a playmaking 9, so I always saw that as a point of difference moving forward. But playing 10 helped me to be able to see the field in a different sense, and sort of helped me with my running game as well and kicking game. So I think that's a really good thing to be able to experiment and try different positions, and as long as you're playing footy.
Yeah, and growing up, Greg, I mean, you're from a bit of a rugby family, from a rugby sort of area as well.
Yeah, it was a great upbringing, I guess, in many sense. I grew up in the south of Edinburgh, small rugby town. There's only about 4,000, I think, in the town, but historically in Scotland, that's kind of been the rugby stronghold, that part of the south of Scotland. Just changed a little bit now, sadly, just because people moving to bigger cities, etc. But certainly when I grew up, it was still like that. It was very much old school. You had to sort of earn your stripes. There was playing with farmers and boys that would, kick the crap out of you if you stepped out of line. So it was a good grounding for me. And obviously I had, my uncle who played for Scotland, and he had 3 sons, so I had 3 cousins that all played the game as well. So if we weren't playing down at the rugby club or whatever, having a scrap somewhere over the weekend or a park or something. So it was a great grounding, and but great memories as well, and just good people in around there.
Yeah. And just jumping back to that sort of 2012 tour that you did to the islands, I mean, I don't know, have you guys actually played in the Pacific Islands at all?
I haven't played in them, no. I think
No, I haven't either.
I've heard when you play Fiji, like to play Fiji or any island team, the score may show that you beat them by a lot, but it's always a tough game. But I've heard when you play them actually at home, it's a totally different beast. I mean, did you play Fiji?
We played Fiji in Fiji, obviously, and then Samoa over in Samoa. So that was it was a great trip. But as you said,
did you lose that one?
Nah, we won
You
them
won
both.
Okay.
Yeah, Fiji one was close. Well, actually, they're both close. to be honest, because we're not great in the heat. We're certainly that heat. I just remember like the training field, and it was like a paddock. The grass was about a year long, and we've got some great photos of it. But a great experience, like to go and play there, and the people are like so friendly. Fiji, Samoa, they're all just smiling, waving, and it was obviously a novelty for them to see a tier 1 rugby nation go over there and play. So I think it'd be great if more teams done it, because even for the players, perspective, it was an awesome experience. Like we were on these old school buses, like with like wooden buses, no windows, and the boys had the big like boombox in the back and stuff. The drivers, the boys were just loving it. Something different, you know what I mean? Rather than going to the usual places that they're used to going to. And a great experience to go over. And I met the Fijians, you know what they're like. They'll try and take your head off and stuff, and same as all the islanders, but straight away after the game they're real relaxed and laughing and joking, and that's one of the great parts of the game. And they're just great people to be around.
Yeah, they would have found your accent unbelievably hard to understand, I'd imagine.
Are you struggling with it as well?
No, you're all right.
That's not what you said. That's not what you said before you came.
I'm watching your mouth real closely just to make sure. No, it even like when I go over there, you see how much rugby means to them. It's almost like it is a religion, you know. So I think the more games or the more exposure that they get to see people that they see on TV, I find that's the biggest thing. They'll come up and they say, "Oh, I often with me, they're like, I'd always thought you were bigger," because on TV they just see, whoever they see, but just to how much it means to them to actually meet someone that they see on TV. So I think if we could get more games over there, it'd be great for the Pacific nations.
Yeah, and I mean we've seen this year with Super Rugby as well, with the Drua playing in Fiji. I mean,
they knocked off the Hurricanes and the Crusaders.
The Hurricanes and Crusaders. I mean, a lot of top teams haven't done that in the last few years, and that's a big win for them.
You see, and when you watch those games, you see how like passionate the crowds are and how much they get them over the line as well. I think there's such an appetite for footy back there.
Have you seen that YouTube clip where the dad's kind of nursing his kid, and the Drua just beat Crusaders, but he doesn't want to wake his kid up, and he's just going, have you seen it? No, he's mouthy. I just saw it like a week ago. Yes. It means so much to them. And obviously, the more exposure they get to playing top-tier nations, the better they're going to get.
Mm-hmm. I think, you can see that I guess it's like time together for the guys, and that's something they've not had, because they've not had teams. Obviously, you've got a Fijian and a Samoan one now, so hopefully that can translate through to the national teams as well, and they can get better and better, and get that exposure more often, because like to watch them play, they're so exciting, and like from a excitement level for exposure of rugby for people watching the game, they play with such freedom, and chucking offloads, and the way they play the game is brilliant to watch.
Yeah, sore after the games.
Yeah, always so. We used to have a 3-second rule when he played against the Island boys. Once you pass, you count to 3 seconds. If you've not been hit, you're safe. Yeah. So just be careful of that one. But they're so friendly as well, but they do get stuck into you.
Yeah, that's the thing. Straight after the game, you're like, what is wrong with you? When you get over that white line, you turn into like they just want to kill you basically. Then straight after the game, they're just smiling like that. Mate, do you not remember what just happened like 10 minutes ago?
They're literally built for rugby, aren't they?
Yeah.
Just athletic, super physical, love the contact, but super skillful as well. They're great people.
Yeah, and just going back to sort of your career, I guess, in Scotland to begin with. You started off in Edinburgh. As you say, you had Mike Blair, a pretty experienced guy ahead of you. What was sort of those first years for you like as a professional?
Yeah, I guess when you're in it at the time, you probably don't realise how much you're learning. But looking back now, I had Mike Blair, Simon Taylor was still at the club, Chris Patterson, who was obviously a goal kicker as well, and he was like almost ahead of his time. He was like super professional, always training, doing all the right things. And as I said, that was the sort of start of the curve, I guess, in many ways. And without sort of realising it, I probably learned a lot off of him, and just by training with him. So I guess I had a great ground in there. Andy Robinson came in, up into Edinburgh, ex-England coach, and won the World Cup with England, and he came in as head coach as well. And again, that was a sort of realisation for me, is like how much I guess I had to develop, and he was somebody that really helped me in my early days.
Yeah, and Edinburgh was the team that you supported growing up?
Well, at the time we had the Border Reivers, so that sort of south region. At the time there was 3 professional outfits in Scotland. Sadly, we only got 2 at the minute, and that's what some people I guess don't realise is it's hard for Scotland. We've only got 2 professional teams. We put a few foreign boys into there that can't play for Scotland. Our numbers actually playing the game, every weekend, they're pretty minimal. Obviously, our big exports, Hoggies, Finns, Johnny Greys throughout the years, they'll go away and they're playing good rugby in France and stuff, but we don't have a lot of players playing the game. So we've always punched above our weight, and hopefully we can do that for the coming years.
Yeah, is that something that, I know you're not a bigwig making the decisions, but Scotland, we've seen how good they've been the last couple of years, but just having a larger player pool, if they did have 3, if the Reivers came back, is that something that you see as manageable or would be beneficial for Scotland?
Well, it would be beneficial, definitely, but like we've seen recently, it has to be sustainable. From you look what's happened in the English Premiership. So, in the South region, we probably don't have enough money to fund a team. So, I think if we can get as many development tools, and that Scotland under-20s programme is vital in my opinion, and just having that ability to really develop our own players, and then in the short term that we might have to take the pain for that, because we might not see the outcomes for a long time. But over that period of time, you look at somebody like Ireland now, they've got more players and more teams, but they run a great model in terms of the school system. And then you get Leinster, Munster, obviously they've been successful, and I think that success, just drives it. Because Irish rugby were, years ago, they were probably behind the curve as well, and they really sort of changed and, brought in that structure that seems to be really helping them now.
Yeah, I reckon that's not at the top level. Like the 2 teams could be fine. It's just that level just below. Yep. As long as you've got a lot of teams there where they're exposed, playing good rugby. Because in Australia, we've got 5 Super Rugby teams. I don't think we've got the talent to have 5 good Super Rugby teams. So I don't think adding more teams is actually the answer. It's just that level below just needs to be strong enough that these kids or whoever it is can make the transition into the pro teams if they're selected. But just that competition below just needs to be strong, and they're getting that rugby.
Because we've got a band like from up until like under 18s, and talking specifically about Scotland, we always go all right, because we're a bit younger, we're not physically developed, and then that sort of 18 or 17 to 20 bracket, it's like it's not whole, but it's a bit of a space we need to fill at the minute, because teams in England, they go into the academies, like the French, they're ahead of the game, because you know what it's like, Gits in France, or you as well, Willie, in terms of all the academy boys are linked to the clubs. So they're training with the boys every day, and we don't really have that at this moment in time in Scotland. So from 17 to 20, one, they don't get like real quality of training, and 2, they don't get exposed to playing good level of rugby, week in, week out, where you can really hone your skills and develop in a really important stage. Because nowadays, anybody that's coming through now that's going to make it 21, 22, they're in the team and they're playing, whereas when I was a bit younger, it's probably slightly later. So it's such an important time, and it's how we bridge the gap and getting boys playing as much quality rugby as we can to develop our homegrown Scottish players, because there's players and there's appetite for the game, and it can be done. You look at world stars now, Hoggy, Finn Russell, two of the best in the world coming out of Scotland. So there's no reason why we can't get 5 or 6 of them in a generation, hopefully.
And then after your time with Edinburgh, you made the move south to Gloucester. What sort of took you to England?
Well, opportunity, it just comes along, and I think I was ready for change as well. I think I'd done about 8 seasons in Edinburgh, and that's what I found, I guess, in my career, is it's almost like a new stimulus. When you go to a different team, it's straight away you've got 30 odd blokes, and you've got to be on your mettle, you've got to perform and almost prove yourself again. And I found I've been lucky enough to play for a long period of time, but that sort of reinvigoration in many ways, going to that new club, you've got to prove yourself again. I don't know what you guys think, but I found that really beneficial over the years.
I feel the same way as well. It's a new environment, new culture, new place which you have to sort of immerse yourself in. But more than that, as professional elite athletes, you want to be able to go there and prove yourself again, and it gives you that new stimulus in a sense, where you can probably rest on your laurels a little bit if you stay at the same place for too long. But then if you go somewhere new, you've got to prove yourself, and then you have a fresh sort of approach to your training, which I think can help you continue to improve and search for that improvement as well.
It's like you're a rookie again. Mentally that's how I approach it. because it doesn't matter what you've done previously. What you've done previously got you that contract, but the boys didn't sign you. So you've now got to prove to them that you're there for the right reasons. Like you're starting back at scratch again, so that keeps you always wanting to get better and play good rugby, I suppose.
Yeah. And has that sort of motivated you as well throughout? I mean, you're at Gloucester for a while, you made the move to Clermont, and then you've made the move to here, to Japan. Is that something looking for sort of that challenge of getting a new environment?
I never really looked for it so much. I don't think anyway. It kind of just happened, organically. And you talked about opportunity before, and you're playing well, and somebody comes in, offers you a deal, and you've got to weigh up. And there's a lot of things behind the scenes as well that it's not just about playing rugby. It's certainly when you start having kids and all that in the equation. It's the part that loads of people don't see, but for me, I'm sure the boys will be the same. It's the most important part. If that part's not taken care of and your wife and kids are not happy, it's very difficult for you then to become the best version of yourself on the rugby field. So the French thing, came along, and obviously I grew up clearly in Scotland, and I think that French top 14, it was always on the TV, and I had access to it, and it was such a cool thing back in the day. Again, it was almost ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Big crowds, big stadiums, and that's something I probably hadn't experienced in Scotland. I did when I went down to Gloucester, which was fantastic, and I really enjoyed my time down there. But just that opportunity to go and play in France, a big club like Clermont, I'm really glad I took that opportunity, because I'm sure you boys that had that great experience as well over France. And what I liked about France was like just the big stadiums, the big arenas. You talk about, being excited to then play again, and I just felt like we had to perform in France. I'm sure you boys felt the same.
Well, I think the good thing about, for you going to Clermont is that you're always going to be pushing for finals. So you're a chance of winning a title, which is exciting. Like each year, you may not have made it this year, but next year you've always got that opportunity to do it. And the pressure of the fans. Like the fans feel like they own you in some regard, some way, which is good, because you've got to perform, which, puts pressure on you. So then you prepare well. And it's almost, to me, it's a similar kind of pressure to Test rugby. That you've got to perform well, play well, because if you don't, Sunday when you're going to pick up your baguette, they're going, well, Matt, why didn't you play so well? Like, what were you doing?
That's one of the things I enjoy about the French people in general, is just how passionate they were, like one way or the other.
Yeah.
And the fans themselves, like we beat Racing that year, and it was like we'd won a World Cup final, and boys are crying in the sheds, and the fans are crying and singing songs. And so to your point about the stadiums and the fans, I really enjoyed that experience.
I think also, I'd love to know your opinion, but because you've been to England, you've been France, you've been Japan, you've really got to show, I think, in the first month that you're there for the right reasons. Like fully immerse yourself in the culture, try and learn French or Japanese, know the cultures, know the things to respect. Like, is that what you found?
Definitely. That's huge, especially when you go to France. Like, I think, Willie, obviously you end up getting injured and stuff, and obviously that's not your fault, but sometimes they seem to take that personally for some reason. And certainly the people I've seen that have went to France, for example, and not bought into the culture early, even if you speak terrible French, or as long as you try, the boys have a bit of a laugh, and they'll take the piss out of you or whatever, but they'll get behind you, and as long as you get stuck in and just really go for it, immerse yourself in the culture, they really appreciate that, and then they tend to warm to you, pretty quickly after that. And rugby boys are mainly the same all over the world, really. They like a laugh, they like a couple of beers, and as long as you get involved with that and play good footy alongside it, and 9 times out of 10 you'll be all right.
I find that so true with banter in the sheds. It doesn't matter if being here in Japan or in France or anywhere that you go. You just have that connection around the banter in the sheds, even with the language barrier.
Japan's a little different because they've got that respect culture. So it's almost like they want to get involved, or they'll listen to you laugh, or making jokes, and they'll sort of get involved. But when you can get them to a level when they're actually bagging a senpai and they're a kohai, that's where I reckon you've got a really good...
So we've got that at our club. And we've also got a bad gambling culture. There's a few degenerates at our club that just play poker.
There's nothing bad. It doesn't sound bad.
We have 2 or 3 hours off in between training. Boys are just playing poker.
Speaking of gambling, did you get to the Cheltenham races when you were at Gloucester there?
Yeah, we did. We've done that on a couple of occasions.
That's a good time.
We actually never went to the big Cheltenham races. We always had to do the other ones because it was always during the Six Nations.
Right. Well, that's probably why I got to go over. Because when I was in Toulon, we're not playing, so we get given the break.
Yeah. So we'd go to different meetings, sadly, but I'd never I don't think I ever done the big one because I was always up in Scotland, so always during the Six Nations.
Yeah, right.
But the boys loved it. The town,
yeah.
the town completely changed.
Mate,
It was madness.
Oh, yeah.
So just touching on Six Nations there, like you obviously spoke earlier about, you had a nice tough grounding as a kid growing up, where you spend all your time as a child. But then in the Scottish environment, when you first were involved, you had good sort of leaders around you where you learnt a lot as far as professionalism and things of that nature. As a Scottish captain, what's your take on leadership? Are you very much about like just a hardline approach where it's about just being honest and saying things how they are? Or are you a bit like, arm around someone, or a combination of both? Or has that changed in your career as you've gotten older?
Definitely changed, I think, Willie. I think I've definitely calmed down a bit as the years goes on, as most people do. And, as a young leader, you make mistakes like everybody else. And the thing I've found about leadership, it's about people and understanding people, and everybody's slightly different. Maybe some of the Islanders, they sometimes need a lot of love in terms of they need arms around them, to perform, and what can I help you with, and whereas some boys, need a kick up the arse other times. And I think it's really understanding people, and what works for you is not going to work for Gits, and for me, I might be again different. So I think it's for me, leadership is about, if you're in that leadership role as well as obviously playing well yourself, is how can you get the best out of your teammates and around you. And it's almost coming from maybe not the coach's perspective, but from that player's side of thing, is how can I treat everybody slightly different, or the way they want to be treated, to really try and help them reach their potential. And I think that's kind of where I've learned the most about the leadership over the years.
What's your use of social media like, Greg? Because we're talking a little bit about the new generation. We've talked off camera a little bit about Six Nations and Netflix and stuff, and looking how we can sort of promote the game a little bit more. I mean, do you see that as an important tool, social media, for individual players as well as teams in the game?
No, I really do. I really do now. And I mean, I'm obviously slightly older, but I think I use Instagram. I'm on Twitter and stuff. And I think for young kids as well, I think or young players coming into the game, as long as they use it in the right way and they understand that there's going to be abuse as well, which is part of it, because as you get older as well, you accept all that stuff and you don't care about it anyway. But it's really important to grow the game globally, and we need stars. We need stars across the game. Like you look at football, why is there so many supporters go along and buy the shirts and all that sort of stuff? Because there's superstars, there's Messi's and Ronaldo's, Neymar's, all these types of guys. And rugby traditionally in the past has probably shied away from that a little bit in terms of it's about the team, and it can't be about the individual. So I really hope there's the team part is so important to rugby, but I think it always will be, and certainly the good teams and that sort of in terms of the traditions and stuff, it's really important. But it's really important now we kick on to this new generation and really try and generate global stars across the game that really excite the fans and grow the game, because that's the only way to do it.
I think it just gives a direct connection to individuals. Like someone could message you and have a good conversation with you about, can you help me with passing or goal kicking? Can you help me with what can you help with?
Exactly. I don't get the message.
But then it's to your point where then it just generates more interest because you have that genuine connection to the individual. Whereas like not long ago, you only ever see him playing games or you'd see him in the paper. And I think it's only good for being able to grow the game if you can actually have those interactions with individuals that you see on TV or you see playing in stadiums.
Yeah, the biggest trap, trying to self-promote too much, that you can get some of the players offside. That was been my biggest learning curve, I think, when I came back in 2015, is like social media and the way some people promote themselves. It's going like, it's a team game kind of thing, but I'm wrong. What they're doing is fine, because their actions outside of what you post is actually for the team. So it's almost like I needed to readjust there. But I think the biggest thing with kids being so sensitive nowadays is if you're going to read all the real nice stuff about you, then you're going to have to read the negative. So it's almost like you just need to understand that potentially that person that's writing something bad about you could be this person that's never left his apartment, and they're just there to just get a reply or do something just to say something nasty. So I think while it's a really important tool, I agree, it's a massive important tool to grow the game and to have superstars. Just you need to have some level of, I really don't give a fuck about what they say. Like, you've got to be strong in your own beliefs and not buy so much into the comments, I think is the biggest trap.
Yeah. Have you guys had any sort of back and forths on social media, good or bad, whether it's private messages or public feeds and stuff?
I've replied to some comments like years ago, someone was saying, "Oh, you should give your money back. You played like shit or something." I was like, "I'll take it, and it's a lot more than what you make or something." But then like, which is true. But then I realised I was like, "What does that actually do for me?" He's probably just wanting to get a response.
Mate, you'd be happy with that response, Yeah. I had Drew Mitchell. There was a fan that had a go at him after a game, Toulon fan. Drew said, "I'll meet you behind. I'll meet you at the car park at Berg where we were training." And that morning. The next morning, Drew got up. I drove with him. He was with the fan, and they were about to throw down. They ended up just having like a chat. He's saying, "I think you're for the wrong reasons, mercenary." Like Drew couldn't speak French, so I'm in the middle kind of translating this thing. But it ended up being fine. But that's probably been the weirdest one that I actually wasn't involved with. You know what Drew's like. He's got a pretty short fuse. He said, "Okay, you think that? Well, meet me at training tomorrow."
Well, you've done it to calm down.
Oh, I mean, this guy was pretty old. Drew should have got over the top of him.
I don't know,
but if Drew lost, I'd have to let it go.
Last time I seen you nearly get in a fight with someone, you squealed.
When?
On the back of the bus in South Africa.
What?
Chiz and Barnesy about to throw down, and Gits out the back going, "Stop!" And you just heard like a little pig squeal, and then I was like, "Is that Gits?"
I love the boys too much. See, I don't like seeing fighting. Were they fighting?
Yeah, remember we were playing the card game, the Joker game.
Oh, right.
And you thought it was real.
Oh, yeah. They had to pretend like they were having a fight. Yeah.
But this little pig squeal was cute. I was like, "This is a cute little pig at the back."
What about you, Greg? I mean, do you get guys message you, and whether it's positive or negative, do you ever fire back at them?
Nah, never fire back. There's no point, you know what I mean? It's as long as you've got strong beliefs in who you are as a person, as a player, you can make peace with that, and no matter what you do, in the world, we talked about, Messi or Ronaldo before, they'll have people sending them stupid shit messages. You know what I mean? They're world class ahead of their field, so it's just part of the world. Sadly, we live in now. People are always going to do it, so you got to be thick-skinned, I guess, as well. And I think so. Hopefully, for these young players, we talked about, I guess the environments we probably came through, and it was a tough environment. You were told
it was worse than any of those messages.
Exactly, it was worse than any of that. But I guess in the long run, that's been good for us because it's made us tougher, I guess, almost without knowing it. And do the younger players they're probably not exposed to that type of thing, and then now they've got this social media handle as well, which some players take it to heart, like literally, and they find it really hard to get over. So as much as it is a good tool, you got to be very careful. You got to be wary. Probably what Giteau mentioned, that you are opening yourself up, to be challenged. So you got to be ready for that, and as well.
If you're sensitive in that regard, you probably shouldn't have it.
No, you probably shouldn't.
Or just get someone else to control it.
Yep.
As a football player too, like if you've had a shit game or a good game.
Yeah. You
don't really need someone to tell you or threaten to bash your supporter at the clubhouse.
At the back of the stadium.
Yeah.
I imagine you haven't had probably many negative comments in Japan though. The fans here obviously at a different level.
No, no.
I don't think I've met any, like the most respectful people ever.
Greg, you
definitely
developed a little bit of a cult status over here, Mr. Greg. How's that come about?
Oh man, it was actually mad to be honest. So what actually happened was 2015. Remember when Japan beat South Africa, and I think it was Brighton or something like that, in the World Cup, which is obviously awesome. And I can't remember the numbers, but 3 million people watched the game here in Japan on the TV. And because they won that game, we were playing them next. So I think the TV audience in Japan was 10x that number or whatever it was. I played for Scotland. I was captain, kicking goals, and I think I was man of the match or something. And then it kind of just exploded from there. I'd be getting all these messages, and it just went mad. And then we came on tour with Scotland off the back of that in 2016. And it was just mental, mate. There was people coming up getting photo, and I was like, "What is happening here?" I thought they were on the wind up. And then 2019, it just went mental. Really, like Ryan Wilson, he was hilarious, mate. He was just following me around, shouting "Mr. Greg" for the most part, and putting them all on social media. But as the boys were saying there, like in terms of the respect as well. I mean, you get noticed and stuff, and you do stuff, but they're so respectful. As people, you tend not to mind as much.
And you've played with a lot of good coaches, obviously, throughout your career in different clubs. One man I want to talk about is someone who's retiring full-time this year, is Laurie Fisher, who was at Gloucester when you were there.
The Lord.
What was he like as a coach?
He was a great coach, Laurie. Very technical. You boys both had Laurie as well?
I had him, yeah.
I've not had him, no.
the Brumbies.
Yeah, had him at the Brums, yeah.
No, a great man as well. Like, different, don't get me wrong, but
Loves a freebie.
yeah, loves a freebie.
Yeah.
The old lord. I used to
What
crack
about
up. I used to see him in Cheltenham, like on the days off and stuff. He'd have a different bucket hat on and his long sort of jeans cut there and his Converses.
Oh, he's not trendy.
Nah, he's not trendy, but he doesn't care. He loves footy, and he's a real technical coach, a real character, and certainly a great man. Laurie's somebody that would send me the odd message as well through social media, so it's great the people you meet over the years, and he's somebody that's pretty good at dropping you the odd message as well, which is nice. So yeah, I dropped him a nice message, and obviously thanked them for our time together. But he's an interesting bloke.
Yeah.
Where does the name Lord come from?
Just around Canberra, like he's known as Lord, I suppose, like Lord of Rugby, maybe because he's been involved in the club scene for so long. He's like Canberra through and through. So I think that's how. I don't know. That's a very good question.
And he was someone who effectively sort of helped identify you as a young guy as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, so he was my Canberra Vikings coach. So I was in the academy and halfback at the time, and I had to fill in one game because our 5'8" got injured, hurt his hamstring. So I moved to 5'8", and I said, is this just for one game? Because I was super nervous, didn't want to play there, never played before, got through that game. And it was off the back of that game that Eddie Jones noticed me, and I ended up going on a Wallaby tour. So, yeah, I don't know if it was more out of necessity that we needed 10 or that he actually saw something in me, but he was great for me. So we had Laurie that was doing the forwards when I first went to the Brums. Then he got moved into head coach. And I remember after one of the games, I went in for a game review. I said, how do you reckon? What do you think I need to improve on? He said, oh, mate, I know forwards. I'm not going to tell a back what to do. And I was going, okay. So then I had to go to one of the boys like Stephen Larkham or Griggs and just see areas to improve. But, yeah, he's a good man. His heart's always in the right place. He loves his rugby, like loves it,
Yeah.
lives and breathes it. Even though he's stepping away professionally, he'll still be involved for a long time and still watching, I think.
Yeah. And just looking at your career, Greg, as you go, one game we do need to talk about, which you've already brought up, Matt, but is the 2015 World Cup, particularly that quarterfinal. It was a bit of a tough experience for you guys. It was a great game to watch as a neutral.
Yeah, tough experience back then. I'm well over it now, thankfully. We can laugh about it now, I guess. But it was. We should have shut the game out like ourselves. We had that opportunity to win the line out and stuff. And I think obviously we had a bit of an overthrow, and you guys end up picking up that penalty. But it was one of the games that the momentum swung so much.
Yeah.
You guys were in front, and then we picked up that intercept, and you can almost feel it, sense it that we're going to win the game. Just need to shut it out. Sort of the glass was coming over the eyes type of thing, and the Aussies thought they were beat, but we left the door slightly ajar, and credit to it was Bernard, wasn't it? That kicked the goal.
Yeah, it was a nice kick.
It was a nice kick as well. So listen, you look back now as well as as a younger leader then, and would he have done something different? Would have tried to call a different line-out call, not that I call the line-out options, and tried to win the ball.
But if we could do that, I would have told James Slipper to pass the ball straight away.
Exactly.
He dummy, and then floated it up.
That was the shocking one.
Yeah.
Picked up the intercept.
Straight through.
You seen it coming a mile away.
Yeah.
So there's always two sides to the coin. Listen, Australia, they've always been a great team, and it was just disappointing for us that we weren't able to shut that one out, because at that point, under the coaching staff we had under Vern, and we were on a sort of upward trajectory, and I think we were doing pretty well, and we were becoming a pretty solid team, and throughout the Six Nations we were sort of really building, and we just needed a big result to really give us more belief as well, and so it would have been a great one obviously to win, and we would have picked up Argentina in the semis, who I'm sure they would have been saying that it would have been great to have Scotland in the semis as well, but but I think it just showed Australia's quality as well. They went on to beat Argies in the semi, and it was a close run final as well. So it's a game I think about, not very often these days. But yeah, it's
that was my 100th too. That was my 100th test. Yeah, so
I thought it was England.
No. That was my 100th. So me and Stephen Moore both at the same time. We both got our 100th in the same test. So I thought the ref called it perfectly. I thought we deserved it. Things happen in sport, and there's so many things, like you say, if you could change things, there'd be a lot of things in that game that we probably would have changed. Even the disallowed try, Willie seemed to think that he didn't knock it on. you're always going to edge towards your team and feel like
Yeah,
you
of
were
course.
hard done by.
That's
But
how it is.
how was that received? Like as far as what the ref,
He didn't shake. He just went
Well,
straight
that,
off.
that was
Yeah.
almost the thing.
I think he was done then from there as well,
I
wasn't he?
think he
Craig
pretty much-
Chabert, yeah.
Well, that was almost like the thing. It was like, yeah, we got beaten, but the way he like ran off the field, it was like,
He
why,
knew
is,
that
why, is he,
maybe-
why is he doing that? Like,
Yeah.
Sort
He
of,
knew
and
he
that
made
was
a
like
mistake.
that sort of jolt to us. It was like, something's happened.
What about
here.
back home? How was this?
Yeah, I never went down.
Is
well
it
back
still
home, right?
like still?
Oh, nah, I mean, your time moves on and
Yeah.
what have you, but it was obviously an opportunity, and for people that follow sport in Scotland, anytime you come close, it's an exciting time because it's tough.
Yeah.
We've talked about it being hard before, so we've not had a huge amount of success, probably because of the reasons we've talked about. We're a small nation, we're a nation of 5 million people, give or take. Football's the main sport as well,
Yeah.
so, and a lot of people don't realise that. So, yeah, anytime you come close in the sporting world, if it doesn't go to plan, there's a bit of an uproar, and certainly the referee was getting pelters. That was for sure off the back of that.
I think Scotland shouldn't be too hard, especially as far as I'm concerned. I gave them the test in 2009. I had a chance to seal it.
Yeah, I remember that one.
We could have gone through undefeated for the first time in forever. And
No. We'd already lost to the All Blacks, I think, previously in Hong Kong.
on that spring tour. We beat England. We
Yep.
drew with Ireland.
Yep.
And you decided we should lose against
We
Scotland.
drew with Ireland, yeah. We should have closed that one out as well.
What was
Yeah.
it? 2 points. Scotland won that one. Was it?
11-9, yeah.
No, 9-8.
Oh, okay.
9-8, was it?
Yep.
Absolute classic in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Must have been pissing the rain, was it?
It was horrible, yeah.
Yeah.
But
I think I was at the
I
game.
thought
Not
from a
as horrible
business
as the
decision,
kick at
I
the
get
end.
free piss. Anytime I go to Scotland, I got free beers now for life.
Oh, God.
With Craig Chabert obviously refereeing that game, I presume you would have spoken to him afterwards, not necessarily straight away, but you would have run into him in subsequent games?
Yeah, we did. I think it was it must have been the following Six Nations, I think. I think he was running the touch or something.
He wouldn't have wanted to talk.
Nah, he never. I mean, I think he reached. He actually came to meet Vern and myself, and Vern was a pretty scary customer. So yeah, I mean, it was just a bit awkward, It was he sort of apologised for probably not so much the decision. I think it should have been a scrum. That was the right decision. Anyway, it doesn't matter anyway.
So,
he more apologised.
Did we
for
get a
running
penalty?
off.
What
got
did
a
we get a
penalty there and then.
because of the scrum straight away?
No,
No.
Scrum never had it. So it was accidental offside, I think.
Yeah,
So
it was
it
ruled
was
as
a
it was
scrum.
ruled as it hit like one of their players
Yeah.
and then hit someone in front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was ruled as offside, and so we got the penalty.
Oh, that's a
Straight
penalty. Or
Well, so what
I
happened
mean, I
was
thought it was a penalty.
it was knocked on by Scotland.
Yeah.
Into it, and then
for
another
some
Scottish
reason in my
player caught
mind,
it.
I
I can't
thought
remember
that
who
there
caught
was
it.
a
That's
scrum.
right. That's right.
But
Yeah.
but it after being knocked on by Scott, I think Nick Phipps or someone, it had hit his shoulder and then
that
gone
was right.
forward. So
It should have been a
if
knock.
it hadn't hit Nick, it would have been a penalty
Yeah.
because it would have been. But because it hit Nick, it was. It should
You never know. We would have had some scrum play that might have opened you up,
Oh,
and
you
we
never
scored.
know. You never know.
You'd have won by more. You'd scored a try.
Yeah, potentially.
Oh, but
Yeah.
these are the things that it's these things happen in the game, and you can't.
Because
hold
the
on
other
to
thing too is that when I think it was Finn Russell scored that charge down try, Foley, he scores it right in the corner, and I remember thinking to myself, like, were you kicking at that
Yeah.
stage? If you nail that, like, it's pretty like with you're 3 points ahead. But then we sort of kept ourselves in it with you. Well, we kept us in it when you didn't hit that kick, and so when we get that penalty, we have the opportunity to win as well. But it goes to what you boys are saying. There's just fine margins. Things happen, and
There's the only kick I missed that day. As well.
yeah, and
I remember.
but funny that's the thing though. You know what I mean?
just the things you
And he
remember.
brings it up.
No, I just remember because if you nail that, like you're
Don't
three
remember the
ahead,
ones
we're
you
done.
made.
Yeah, well,
Well,
that's
we
it.
just scored a try.
Well, you boys had a stacked team anyway because, well, Izzy was playing as well, wasn't he?
Yeah,
I
but
was speaking to him about it. I think
he was
off.
playing but not playing. Like, so his ankle, he was on the field, but at like 60%.
Maybe that's why we were close.
Well,
He's pretty freakish, isn't he?
yeah, he's good, isn't he?
He's still got it too, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah, he's unreal.
And I mean, so talking Izzy, you're in Uriasu now. What's that been like for you moving over here? You talked a little earlier about, obviously bringing your family to different places is a challenge for them as well. How have they adjusted?
Yeah, I was really enjoying Japan. It's completely different, clearly, from what we're used to. But I think that I've learned from my experience as well, moving elsewhere. And as long as you come in, with open eyes and you expect it to be different, and 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to be all right and you'll settle in. And now my wife's awesome. She's happy to come and try new challenges as well, which is really important. Otherwise, you're probably not going to be able to do it. Kids are doing really well. They go to international school, but they get Japanese lessons. So my oldest, he's speaking fairly good Japanese, which is incredible.
Yeah.
He's got a really good Japanese mate as well, who stays just next to us.
How old is he?
He's 8.
Yeah.
He's 9 in the summer. So.
How good's that?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And his little Japanese mate, he's fluent in English as well, so they get along. And so it's little things like that, and you know, it's just incredible to hear. I never ever thought, you know, firstly that I'd be, you know, finishing my career in Tokyo when I started playing rugby in Edinburgh, and then, you know, my eldest son's speaking Japanese, which is, you know, it's just amazing.
Well, it's a life skill that you're giving him. Like, I know a lot of people that pick up jobs and travel around the world purely because they can speak the 2 languages.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, especially for a kid, they don't have to think.
Yeah,
Just all of a sudden they can speak Japanese. Yeah, that's awesome.
So having been here, like one thing I wanted to ask, what's the most different thing you've experienced being here in Japan?
Good question. Onsens, mate, they're pretty different.
I don't go to them.
Nah, we would go. It's funny, so we've got one not too far from the onsens, like the hot baths, and most of the time, you know, fully naked, so you just immerse yourself in the culture. The boys, my kids love them. We've got one not too far from the house, but there's like a family part of it as well. So when we first rocked up, you're wearing you know, swimmers or whatever.
Yeah.
So the missus, she goes in, changes in the women's part, and you walk through the back, and it's out the back, so obviously separate from the men's and the women's naked ones. But Rachel got lost on the way through in the women's one, and she come out the other side. Eventually, me and the boys were standing waiting. What are you doing? And she came out, and she was like white as a sheet. She was like, I've been lost in there. I've seen a few things. You've seen a bit of starfishing going on from a couple of Japanese.
Yeah, they're
ladies.
pretty open like that too, aren't they? They're just like, let it go. A few of the boys, you see their nuts floating on top of the water.
Yeah, so that's obviously pretty different.
Yeah.
We don't go to them too often, but the family one down the bottom, it's pretty cool to take the kids, and yeah, that's certainly something that's fairly different about Japan.
Yeah, you've got 3 kids, haven't
Yeah.
you? And were they born in Edinburgh, or where have they?
My oldest was born in Scotland.
Yeah.
My middle one was born down in Gloucester.
Yeah.
When we were down there, and then my young fella was born here in Tokyo.
What was that? Because I mean, obviously, I imagine you would have had English-speaking doctors, but Japan's a bit of a different place to England and Scotland.
Yeah, well, it wasn't great, to be honest, because we were still in COVID restrictions. So my missus, my wife, had to go into the hospital on her own. It was madness. So I'd obviously turn up, I'd drop her off, and then literally say bye to her. I wasn't allowed to go in for the birth, or anything. So I guess we were lucky in many ways. It was baby number 3, so Rachel had a fair idea of what was going to happen with English-speaking doctors and stuff. But yeah, that was weird. I didn't enjoy that, and I'm fortunate I'd been at the 2 other births. But that's one of the tough parts, as you boys will know, about being away, and when you're with the family, you don't have that, you know, extended family, grandparents or whatever, or friends to help you out, or, you know, just look after the kids. So it's one of the tough parts, and it's part of the challenge, isn't it?
And we've heard a little bit about, obviously, the challenges of, well, being an adult here, and things like mail, and it's very process, rule-driven culture. What about with kids? Are there specific challenges that you sort of didn't anticipate, even things like enrolling them in school or registering a birth?
Oh yeah, that whole side of things in Japan in terms of logistics and filling out paperwork is unbelievable. Yeah, here in Japan, because my impression of Japan before I got here was like it's miles ahead of everywhere else in the world, but when you get here, it's miles behind in terms of that side of things, like banking systems and paying bills and all that stuff. It's absolutely madness. So there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes, especially when you got kids to. Simple things like you want to sign them up to a club, and the process you got to go through, it's pretty tough work.
The banking process is funny, like the whole signature thing.
Yeah.
So when I first opened my bank account, I signed my signature, and I remember the lady saying to me, remember it. If you don't have a stamp, remember it, because every time you sign it, it has to be exactly the same. So I went into the bank like a couple of years later, and I had to sign a form to release my bank statements. I couldn't just ask for it. So I've signed the form, she's taken away, brought it back, and she's like, oh, this doesn't look like your signature. Can you please do it again? I was like, I'm me, like signing this in front of you. And she's like, yeah, I know, but please sign it again. So I've just had to sit there, and she's brought out the initial document, and I've had to try to copy it so it looked exactly the same for it to then be passed. So yeah, like I had the same impression coming over here that they'd be miles ahead, but they love paperwork here, and they do things so incredibly slow. And yeah, it sometimes drives you nuts.
Yeah, anytime you have to go to City Hall, it's almost like head in hands. It's,
Yeah.
I'm
You just know the day's
line
there.
for 40 minutes or
yeah,
something.
I'm there for the day.
And I mean, so you moved here 2021, I think it was.
End of 2020.
End of 2020.
And, yeah.
And you'd played here 2019 World Cup. As you said, you played here 2016 as well. So you knew a little bit about, probably not the forms you have to fill in, but obviously you knew a little bit about the place before you came over, and that would have helped your decision.
Yeah, definitely. I think probably off the back of the World Cup, I'd had a sort of couple of teams, say look, potentially interested in you coming to Japan and what have you. And I guess probably that extended period of time in Japan during 2019, it probably showed me I probably could live here. Obviously, Japan's this place that everybody talks about. It's completely different, etc. But if I didn't have that extended period of time, I'd have probably been a bit more standoffish about signing in Japan, and potentially I would have stayed in France for a little bit longer and not done it. But yeah, I'm certainly glad I took on the challenge, and otherwise wouldn't be sitting here today and having this chat. So it's been a great journey.
Yeah, and 2019 World Cup was obviously an unusual one as well for you guys, with the whole typhoon coming through, and you guys almost not getting to play that game against Japan. What was sort of that experience like as a team, just thinking that your fate had almost been taken out of your own hands at one stage?
Yeah, it was bizarre. Like, we weren't playing well at the time, I guess, as well, which is always a bit unsettling. I think we got well beaten by Ireland. We ended up beating Samoa down in Kobe and played all right, but even before the tournament, probably didn't know where our game was, and then all this stuff. There was a typhoon coming in the day before the game. We didn't do a team run and all that. It was pretty unsettling. But listen, it was credit to Japan. And in 2019, they played well. They were the better team on the night, and they beat us. And coming back to the rugby side of things, you've got to be confident in exactly what you're doing. And at that moment in time, we probably weren't sure, where we were as a team, and we certainly paid the price for it. So. Yeah, it was a strange one.
Was there talk about the game actually not happening, and then on for and against, you guys would have...
We'd have been out anyway, yeah.
Oh, you would have been out anyway? Oh, is that right? So...
Yeah, because...
Oh, I thought it was Scotland. Maybe you guys were pushing to not play, and then you threw to the quarters because it wasn't safe.
Well, a lot of people forget it as well, but Japan beat Ireland as well.
Yeah, I was about to say,
so they'd already beaten Ireland, and Ireland had beaten us. So we were gone if we never played the game. So we were obviously hoping it was going to be on. And yeah, it was bizarre. We were like locked down in the hotel from the day before. So team run, captain's run. We ended up doing the captain's run, literally walking through it in one of the conference suites in the hotel. So it was a bizarre one. Obviously we were worried the game was got to go ahead, and then we only got the word, I think it was in the morning of the game.
Is that right?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, because it was obviously with these things, they don't know how quick it's going to move through and all that sort of stuff. So
that must be a little bit of emotional whiplash almost, because you're sort of just hoping the game goes ahead, and you're told the morning of it's happening, but then you suddenly have to be in prep mode. I mean, were you guys in prep mode already anyway, assuming it was going to happen? Like, did you think it was going to happen, or were you...
Well, you always try and tell yourself that for sure, and prepare like normally. There was this sort of chat, but it is difficult.
Yeah.
And certainly personally for me at the time, I probably knew I was going to retire from Scotland after the World Cup, and I wasn't captain at the 2019 World Cup, and then I was asked to be captain for the Japan games.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of moving parts, and probably because what I've touched on before, we probably were a bit unsure where we were as a team. It was a pretty difficult time for us. And a difficult time, I guess, to perform, because if you're not sure of what you're doing, and every player I think goes through it, you're slightly low on confidence, and then when you're slightly low on confidence, you're never the best version of yourself, and that probably summed us up at that 2019 World Cup. It was a tough one.
Yeah, and obviously didn't tell your experience, because you've had a few years here now, and you're committed to staying on another year. Can you tell us a little bit about what's next for you?
So in the short term, I'm still on contract for another year with the same team. Urayasu D-Rocks, as we're now called, with part of the NTT group, who rebranded.
What is a D-Rock?
It's a good question. When that name came out, we were a bit unsure ourselves, for sure. I've no idea is the answer, but that's what we're called. So part of the NTT group.
So your contract, you signed a 3-year deal, is that right?
No, I signed 2-year Gits originally, so I done 2 years with Shining Arcs, as we were called then.
Yeah.
And then this is the first year we've had this brand new team, Urayasu D-Rocks. So I signed a 2-year with them, but year one was playing, which we've just finished.
And the second year
in
was
second year.
to transition.
Yeah.
So you've known for a while that you're going to retire.
Yeah. I wasn't. I was thinking about just calling it a day after the second year, ending with the original 2-year contract, which I was at that time, and I was considering retiring. My body was slowing down, etc., and I wasn't probably enjoying it as much.
Then you saw the yen.
And then I saw the yen, but the exchange rate's not good at the minute.
Just hang on to it.
Exactly.
It's all about timing.
So I've got another year on the contract. I'm going to go into the coaching side of things with the same team, which I'm super excited about because I'm hoping it's a really good place to start my coaching journey, because the Japanese guys, players, like they're awesome in terms of like their work ethic, and you guys have experienced that. And I think, but some of them do need a fair bit of coaching. The guys that come out of uni. So I'm hoping from that coaching side that's going to really help me as a young coach come in, because they do need a lot of coaching around skills, but also the sort of understanding of the game side as well. So I'm hoping I can use my experience to really help the sort of next generation.
Moving forward, long term, coaching is like a space that you want to have a crack at.
Yeah, I think so, mate. I definitely want to explore it in the short term. It's something that I've really enjoyed over the years in terms of that coach's side, and I don't know if it's completely coaching. I really like that, performance under pressure, that sort of leadership stuff as well. So whether I eventually move into a space like that, I'm not too sure. But I think I'm a big believer in because you've got a fairly successful career or whatever, it doesn't automatically translate you're going to be a great coach. So I think it's really important you go and earn your stripes somewhere. I look at somebody like Ronan O'Gara. I think he's done an excellent job. I think he started at maybe like Racing as a kicking coach. Obviously went down to New Zealand, and then he's doing great things now. And I think he's somebody that's done it the right way. He's went away, he's spent his time, he's learned his craft again, and obviously he's getting great results now. So I think that's a bit of a blueprint. Hopefully I can certainly follow that learning model.
Just touching on retirement, like Gits, you've obviously retired. What's the thought process? I'm at the back end, so I'm probably another couple of years before I'm there. But where's your head at as far as your thought process leading up to that? Like, what are some things that sort of lead you to making that decision? Like, is it mentally, emotionally, physically, or all of the above?
Yeah, for me, probably more mentally, Willie, I reckon, because like physically, I've done pretty well with my body. My body's all good and stuff, but yeah, I don't know. Perceptions change as well. We talked about kids and stuff as well, and I don't know. It's not that you put less into like the rugby environment. I think you kind of just move away from it a little bit in terms of you don't want to. It's not that you don't want to give 100%, but you've got other things on your mind. You know it's coming to an end, and that's. And it's not easy, because it's all you've known for a long time. Us guys, we've been lucky enough to be involved in the game for over 10 years, closer to 20 probably. And so it's a difficult time, because and a lot of people get wrapped up in that's who you are. So it's a difficult one, because and that's something that I've sort of battled with / learned as well over the years. Is I don't want to, just because I'm a rugby player, that's not really just who I am. So it's about having a different side to you as well. So I know I'm getting a bit deep and maybe off track there, but it's all the things that are running through your head. Yeah. I'm sure you went through that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as the retirement message, like when you actually say you're retiring, you've known for a while. It's more a shock or a big message for other people. Mine was more around my kids. So I've moved them around, asked my wife to sacrifice and give up a lot for me just to play rugby and play a game that I love. Travel around the world. Sure, they've had great experiences, but they've sacrificed a lot. It just got to me, like my oldest kid's 11, and I felt like it was time for me to sacrifice and give them like a stable, like as in they stay at the same school, they're consistently around their friends, they can get into sport, they can have a normal childhood that I had. I felt like I was kind of, I don't know whether I was overthinking it, but I felt I was robbing him a little bit of that. So that was kind of my thought.
It's a very good point, because my eldest, who touched on early, he's 8 now, and we always talked about that 10 mark is when we'd want him settled in the same school, and that sort of familiarity of people around him, of what he's doing, and he knows where he is and what he's doing. So yeah, that definitely comes into your thinking as well, the older you get.
Do you think you'll go back to Scotland? Is that sort of the next, or are you very open to opportunities?
Eventually, Scotland will be home. Eventually, I'm very patriotic in terms of, I love my country. I love the people. For the most part, and I think it's a great part of the world. I had a great upbringing, and so I think I'd love the kids to grow up there eventually. But it depends. I'll at one point I'll have to nail my colours to the mast and really. But I think in the short term, willing to explore a couple of different things, and got a couple of things away from the rugby field as well, which is really important. I'm involved with a new whiskey brand as well, coming out of Scotland, which I'm actually really enjoying. Getting involved in that, understand a little bit more about that process. So,
how do we get a couple of bottles of that?
Yeah, we'll sort you out, mate.
Yeah.
We'll have a couple in France. At the World Cup.
What's it called? Your whiskey?
Wolf Craig Distillers. So we're a new startup. It's going to be producing eventually single malt whiskies, but for the meantime, we're producing blended whiskey, because obviously it takes a long time for single malts. But the main guy behind it, or one of the main guys, is a guy called Richard Patterson, who's pretty famous in the whiskey world. He's got a lot of experience over 50 years, so I've been able to spend a bit of time with him. He's a bit of a character as well. So yeah, enjoying that side as well, away from the game. Awesome.
It's big. It's big business in Scotland, the whiskey.
Huge business.
Adam, I play with Adam Ash in LA, and he
DJ
would
Big
buy.
Love.
Yeah, exactly. DJ Sexy, he calls
DJ
himself
Sexy.
now.
He must have upgraded.
Yeah, he has. LA changed him, but he would buy these big casks, and you just let them sit.
Yeah.
And they appreciate.
Yep.
Almost like a good watch or whatever else.
Yeah. So I think over, I don't know how many years it is, but I think whiskey's almost outperformed like gold and everything. Obviously you got to get the right ones, but yeah. So if you want to invest,
mate,
it's a business. Like in terms of the exports and stuff out of Scotland, it's absolutely huge. And I actually never realised here in Japan is such a big whiskey culture as well. Before I got here, loads of distilleries.
Should have gone to Suntory.
Maybe should have came to Suntory, but you can't buy any of the good stuff at the minute. They're so expensive and rare. So, and that's why it's a good investment. So if you get the right ones, man, it's a good one to invest in.
Awesome. Well, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. But Gits and Willie, it's always good to have you here.
That was good. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, pleasure. Cheers,
Greg,
guys.
thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.